Hello, listeners. Welcome back to another episode of Acquisitions Anonymous. I am one of your hosts, Bill D'Alessandro, and this week we've got a really cool deal. It is a chain of Cricket wireless stores in Chicagoland. So we start talking about this business specifically, and Michael and I get into a wide-ranging discussion of franchising dynamics, geography dynamics, and kind of the future of the cell phone industry. So it's a really good one. A couple asks for y'all before we dive into it. If you could please go on iTunes or wherever your podcasts are sold and leave us a review. If you like it, it really helps us to get more listeners for the pod. I also want to say thank you to our sponsor, Live Oak Bank, for this episode. If you are doing an SBA loan, I would highly recommend you go to Live Oak. They do the most SBA loans in the country, I believe. I personally have worked with them a couple times, and they're great people. They're really fast and professional. So use Live Oak if you're looking for an SBA loan. With that, let's get into this week's episode.
This episode is sponsored by Live Oak Bank, the #1 SBA lender in the country by dollar amount. But they're more than the top SBA lender. They also provide USDA and conventional financing, tailoring each loan to their customers' unique needs. Whether you're looking to buy or expand a business, let Live Oak be your financial guide. With Live Oak, you get a partner who believes in your success and is willing to take the journey alongside of you. Live Oak's M&A financing experts lend across many industries nationwide. They also have over 30 industry-specific teams whose lenders are experts in industry-specific small business loans. Some of these include healthcare, seniors housing, and service contractors as well. With their dedication to efficiency, collaboration, and in-depth knowledge of M&A financing, they'll take you where you need to go. Visit liveoakbank.com/AA and make sure that's a lowercase a and another lowercase a to connect with a lender today. So again, that's liveoakbank.com/AA with 2 lowercase a's to find out more about Live Oak and to connect with the lender there, and tell them that the Acquisitions Anonymous folks sent you along. Thanks a bunch.
All right, Michael, I'm psyched for another episode of Acquisitions Anonymous. The hurricane is bearing down on us here on the East Coast. You are safe and dry in Texas. Mirko is safe and dry in South America. So I'm here in my storm jacket, but we've got an interesting deal today. Michael just dug this one up. Introduce it to us, Michael.
Yeah. Well, before we do, this morning we were texting for our listeners. We were texting with Mills. And Mills is like, I can't make it today. And for those of you who don't know, Mills is in the roofing business in the southern half of South Carolina. And so the immediate image that came to mind, and I don't know if this movie's something you've seen, but Smokey and the Bandit. Are you familiar with this movie, Bill?
Yep.
There's a scene in Smokey and the Bandit 2 where there's like this massive trucker convoy that comes in to save the day. And that's what I imagine Mills' day is like today, because he's got to be just loading up everything and headed down to Florida to make as much money as possible in like the next 2 months. So I'm hoping it goes awesome for Mills. But anyway, I just wanted to share with you that image from Girdley Brain that happened this morning. And it was just like, oh, let's go eastbound and down. Let's sell some roofs. Go Mills, make some money. That's what I had to say.
This is like the curse or the laugh, the joke of being in business is like the hurricane hits, and all I can think of is Mills and like our friend Guesswork Investing from Twitter that owns a tree service. Every tree guy and roof guy in the whole Southeast flocks to Florida to make as much money as they can every time a hurricane hits, and that's like all I'm thinking of.
So I saw a hilarious TikTok this morning because, that's what I do on Friday mornings. So I'm on TikTok, and this young lady creates a TikTok, and she's like, everybody says pray for Southwest Florida, but hey, this is all I see. Check out my Tinder. And she just shows us like all these shots from Tinder that are like dudes hanging from the sides of light poles, like fixing roofs, like 25-year-old like worker men have all descended upon Southwest Florida and are suddenly all on Twitter, and on Tinder, and she's like, hallelujah, like the cavalry has arrived.
Awesome.
So I guess
that's the same as like the North Dakota oil field camps and everything. Like all these single dudes are transient and in for a couple weeks.
It is a weird place, North Dakota, for sure. Okay, so and then today's deal selection is I played Biz Buy Sell Roulette. I opened up Biz Buy Sell and I clicked on the first deal that they showed me, and that's the one we're doing. Like, this is the best radio ever. Anyway, okay, so what this one is it's in Chicago, and this deal is a rapidly growing chain of 6 Cricket Wireless franchise cell phone stores. So it has a picture of a Cricket, arguably, in an interesting thing. I don't know if you noticed this from the picture, Bill, next to a Radio Shack. So it makes me wonder how
How
old
old is
these
that
pictures,
photo?
how these photos are, because Radio Shack went out of business like 4 years ago, and it's now owned by Ty Lopez or whatever and his team. So it is what it is. But I think so. Behind this is when you see an AT&T wireless store, or you see a Cricket store or a Verizon store, most people don't know that those aren't actually run by AT&T, Verizon, or Cricket, or whoever, T-Mobile. A lot of those are run by independent chains of operators who just run those stores. And what AT&T and all those guys figured out is, man, it is much more efficient if we contract with third parties to do this, just like FedEx outsources its routes and Amazon outsources their routes as well to small entrepreneurs who are just much more efficient than their big corporation is. So that is what this is. This is Cricket has gone and created these relationships with an independent franchisee. Then the craziest thing is some of these brands, they don't even actually own their network, right? So are you familiar with this as well, Bill?
Yes. The
Yeah.
acronym is MVNO, right?
Yeah. A virtual network operator.
Mobile virtual network operator.
Yeah. So basically
Yeah.
they're just a branding arm, a branding and a customer service arm that sits between the customer and somebody else's network. So they might be in the background using AT&T or T-Mobile's network. You don't even really know it. And I think Cricket is one of those, and it's a brand I'm not a customer, but it's a down market brand that kind of targets lower consumption, lower price point folks that an AT&T or one of the flagship brands don't actually want to, they can't do that and not pollute their flagship brand. So anyway, that is all I know about mobile networks.
So Cricket, I do know that for the longest time, T-Mobile and Sprint were like the biggest sellers of wholesale minutes. So these guys like Cricket, like Boost Mobile, there's a couple other brands. What they do is they buy millions of minutes in bulk on the T-Mobile network, and then they resell them. So their cost of goods is minutes, right, and data, and then whatever revenue they get by selling plans. So it's an interesting model. So these guys, but this is not Cricket itself. This is the franchised Cricket retail stores.
Correct. Yeah, you're under contract to resell Cricket and service their customers and phone like that. So, so business-wise, they're asking 1.2 million, and cash flow is 400,000. So they have 6 stores, and they're doing 1.2 million. Man, is that? Or I guess we don't have revenue. Okay, cash flow is 408,000. So it seems like each store is generating 60 to 70,000 a year in cash flow. Gross revenue, they don't tell us. EBITDA, they don't tell us. FF&E, they don't tell us. Rent is $3,000 per month, which doesn't make sense. It is Chicago. Anyway, I don't know, but $3,000 per month seems like about what they would pay per store, and not for all 6 stores. And they've been in business since 2012. And as an aside, like I read once about there's one of the operators of these kind of stores for AT&T that is so good that they have like 1,000 plus of these little stores all over the country, like just a huge business being a franchise partner of AT&T. So some people have made a ton of money, and these guys have done okay. They started in 2012. Business description: best for an EB5 visa, permanent residency card in 6 to 12 months. Let's put a pin in that because we should come back to that because we've never talked about that on the podcast before. But the the key word when you see EB5 is China. It's very interesting. Okay. 3 years of strong tax return, over 14 full-time employees, fast-growing yearly sales volume, strong net income of $34,000 per month. So does that math work? 34,000 to 408? Yeah, that's right. Current owners spent lots of money for all repairs and improvements. And Bill, like any good business listing, everything on this listing is in all caps, which to me just emphasizes we are serious about business.
This is a professional business broker.
Okay. Location: Chicago, Illinois. Inventory not included in asking price. The real estate is all leased, so you don't get any real estate with this deal. Each location appears to be 1,500 square feet, 14 total employees, which is fascinating to me. That they have 6 locations and only 14 employees.
6 locations.
Yeah. Maybe that's per location. I mean, if you look at like a typical fast food or retail operation, like I think most people don't understand how many people like a McDonald's employs. Like yeah, a lot of them are getting 15 to 20
they're all
hours.
part-time. Yeah. Yeah, they're all part-time. They're not all there all the time. So you need like a fleet of them, right, to cover all the hours.
I mean, yeah, of everything I'm involved in, like the business that employs the most people is our, retail coffee business. And it's like, cause each store employs like 40 people, like, and they're not full time and they're transient and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, it's amazing. Yeah. And like, have you seen how much a typical Chick-fil-A hires? I forgot the exact number, but it's like
No,
150
how
people.
much
It's like 150 people
for one Chick-fil-A?
for one Chick-fil-A.
Wow.
Yeah. It's incredible. It's
What
just,
so at a Red Runner Coffee, how many people are in the store? How many employees are in the store at one time?
between 1 and 6.
But
Yeah.
you need 40 on staff
Yep.
on payroll.
Yep.
Whoa.
Yeah, because some people are only working 2 days a week. Then there's like, we're open 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. So then you're shifting that out as well. So all of that is like,
Mm,
you could run 2 shifts in a day basically. Then there's people that only show up during the busy times, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, on a payroll active at any given time will be that many.
wow.
Cool. All right, back
Wow.
to this
So
deal.
to you, 14 employees seems really
Yeah,
light.
it's like, wait, what? You're doing what? Doesn't make sense. And every time I go into my local AT&T store, there's like 4 people, 5 people standing around. And again, that's probably because it's a corporate one. But even still, like, I don't know how you run this business with 6 locations with only 14 people being open 7 days a week. Just doesn't make sense. But we'll get back there. Maybe that's just one. That would make more sense if it's just per location. Um, Competition. They instead of listing the competition bill, they say fast growing business. So yay. I don't know what that means. All caps. Growth and expansion, higher weekly and monthly franchise fees for more numbers of stores. They are willing to sell or finance. I think that's what this means. It says financing 50%, and they will train you for 3 to 6 months. And the reason for selling is the most Chicago reason ever. The I guess number one most Chicago reason ever would be unions / the mafia is putting me out of business. Number 2 is I'm leaving Chicago. So it turns out the reason for selling here is number 2, relocation to other state, and the business is an established franchise located throughout kind of Chicagoland area. And they give us a picture here of the actual stores. So if you're on YouTube, like it's just basically 1,800, 1,500 square feet inside of these individual kind of strip centers around the Chicagoland area. And here, I think they give us better numbers here, Bill. 108,000 a month in gross income. So I guess they're doing 1.2 million a year, so about 200,000 per store. Gross expenses are 74,000 a month, and net income is 34,000 a month across 6 stores. And then they actually give us sales per store of all of these, and it's pretty interesting. There are 2 stores that are massive outperformers, and then the other ones look like they're barely breaking even.
Interesting.
What do you think? Are you ready? Are you
So
ready to
there's
be in the Cricket Wireless thing in Chicago?
So there's a couple. I mean, no, I'm not ready to be in any business in Chicago for the aforementioned reasons. But I mean, in general, so it looks like all these are in strip malls, right? So you probably don't need to be in like the nicest, fanciest strip mall. You probably got to only be open 9 to 5, right, or 9 to 6, or 8 to 6, or something, right? Like this isn't a restaurant; it's not an all night business. You don't really have any cost of goods or inventory, right? So I imagine like you're basically just handing out phones or selling minutes or plans, right? So it's probably pretty capital light. You don't have to worry about all your marketing because Cricket does it for you. It's a franchise. I don't hate the business model itself. There's probably some recurrence. I don't know how Cricket pays you. What do you think, Michael? Do you think they just pay you like an origination fee per contract plus you sell the accessories? You think that's how it's structured?
I would be willing to bet that you're basically breaking even when costs are put in on selling and managing the phones, and you make all your money on potentially accessories and repairs. And I don't know if these guys do repairs in their store like Apple does, but like I bet you your gross margins on phone cases are 90%, and I bet your gross margins on the stuff that Cricket has you selling is 15 to 20%. You're just breaking even on it. That would be my guess as to how this is all set up. That really how you make your money's on those ancillary things, not on the direct business, if that makes sense.
Do you think that the dynamics of this being Cricket is any different than like a Verizon or AT&T? So Verizon or AT&T is typically what would be called postpaid, right? You get a bill for the in arrears for the month of service, and they credit check you. The Crickets, the Boosts are typically prepaid, right? You buy minutes or you buy
Yeah.
months in advance, so that the provider isn't taking credit risk. So you're often, I think, back in the store more often to buy more minutes, or re-up. You can do it online, but I think a lot of people still come in. Um, do you think that the economics are any different because of that?
I bet your revenue. I would get. I mean, we enter total conjecture thing here, but I bet your revenue mix totally shifts, right? Like as I think through it, somebody who is going to be an AT&T customer, they're going to be paying. My monthly mobile bill is $250 for my whole family, basically, and we have top tier kind of unlimited plans. I bet once you get down to the how do I do a $49 a month plan, or how do I like do the bare minimum with data caps and all that kind of stuff, those aren't going to be people like the 250 prepaid ones, who are going to walk in and drop $50 on a on a case that costs you $2 and not think twice about it. But I think you're going to have a lot more penny pinching type folks. But yeah, I think the other thing is you're going to see these people a lot. Like there's probably a lot of cash based people who are coming in every month, and it's like, okay, I need to up my phone for the next 3 months. Here's $150, and you're doing a lot of that kind of stuff. Just they're harder to upsell to those other things we were talking about.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So am I wrong here? Like, is this maybe not a terrible business? What do you think, Michael?
I I think it's not a bad business to be in. Look, I think the pain in the butt here is the type of customer you're dealing with. Like my buddy owns buy here pay here auto dealerships. Are you familiar with that model? Yeah,
Yep.
like they totally target like this end of the market, like the unbanked, the paycheck to paycheck type folks. And like they're kind of both good and bad customers, right? They're good in that oftentimes, they're pretty straightforward. They show up with cash and you take care of them. They're bad in that they're always like just living right on the edge, right? So I bet you're dealing with a lot of pain in the butt kind of customers with all of this versus kind of one of the flagship brands. So that would be my kind of question about this. Like, if you look at the pain in the ass factor here, like owning this business, right? You have 6 crickets. Okay, so they're spread across Chicagoland, and they gave us the addresses of them. Then you're netting 34,000 a month across all of them. At a certain point, this problem with this deal is you're like at a scale where like you're either dealing with the pain in the butt of how do I staff and keep 6 stores running well and all the, when the air conditioning breaks and all that. I mean, there's just going to be a continual stream of pain in the butt stuff going on here. And you're like right at that cusp of, can I hire a good person to run this for me? And once you do the math here, my guess is the net income is the owner is owner operating these. Let's say you're going to replace them with somebody good. That's going to cost you 125 to 150,000 a year, all in with benefits and everything. And the car they're going to need to go drive through all these places. Like it gets really thin at that point, right? We're doing a multiple of SDE here, and the job is kind of a pain in the ass. Like managing 6 low end stores like this, like it's a grind. That's the best way I could just describe it. And this isn't at scale, unfortunately. Like this would be much cooler if it was 15 of these things, but 6, like, in kind of in no man's land.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's the problem. Even if it's at 15, like, yeah, it's a bigger business, but damn, you still got 15, right? Like the unit economics on one of these are just not very lucrative. So to have a business of any scale, I mean, this business is hardly scale. It makes $400,000 a year, as you said, and it's got 6 stores. You're running pretty hard to make $80,000 net a store, less, again, as you said, a manager. So even if you scale this up, I mean, if you had 100 of these, it would be really complex and still not that big a business. That's the only thing that bums me out about it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why you see all of these guys from FedEx to Amazon to AT&T, like and Subway's another great example, right? Like these big corporations have figured out that if they are the franchisor, they can capture almost all the economics, and then they have somebody who's just willing to bust their butt and is trapped, right? Like you let's say you're this guy and the company's making 400,000 a year. You're in a tough situation. You're not really making enough to keep growing the business because it costs you a build out and all this kind of investment to get each store up to speed. But also you can't go make that kind of money doing something else. So basically you end up just like as a person making a ton of money, but working your ass off, right? It's kind of the iBanker trade-off, right? You're going to have a terrible life, but you're going to make 2 million a year. Would you like to sign up for that? And some people do. And a lot of them, unfortunately, are folks that are kind of vulnerable on the entrepreneurial spectrum. And you end up with, I think, like the Subway situation, where like Subway is a terrible franchisor in terms of taking care of its franchisees and just beats the hell out of them. And they work their ass off for not much money. And so that's what this totally feels like. And I don't know, have you dug in recently into like the economics of what the Amazon third-party delivery people go through? Have you looked at it recently?
I have not dug in deeply. I have heard it's not great.
So I have a buddy who owns one, like in a nearby town, and he has it set up, I think, pretty good, where there is a general manager that he partners with who owns part of the business. But by and large, like it's my buddy's name on the majority of it, and he captures the majority of the economics. And basically, like every month, Amazon basically just tells him how much money he's going to make. Like that's it. There's just no, I was like, so can you like make more money? He's like, only if Amazon tells me I can. Can you make less money? Yeah. Well, Amazon just kind of figures out what is like that equilibrium point, and then they just keep hammering me until I get to it. And that's just the way it works. And this feels like exactly the same thing. Like Cricket has realized they can trap you in this stuff, and they're going to capture all the economics. So anyway, other than that, that's a great deal.
Yep. Do you think? So this is what I'm trying to figure out. Like, is this a durable business, like a franchisee of Cricket? I mean, yeah, okay, the margins are not great. Your franchisor is trying to extract from you. But like, is this business around in 25 years, or does this all go online? Or is there always going to need to be the need for a Cricket wireless store? That's what I'm trying to think. Like eSIM, just the new iPhone is eSIM only. There's no more SIMs. Like they can ship it to you, activate it remotely. At what point do you not need a Cricket wireless store and you just need a cell phone case store? And if you're that, why aren't people buying it on Amazon? Like, does this need to exist long term?
I think long term, it definitely needs to exist. I don't know if it'll exist at the same scale. I've talked to the AT&T store people when I go in, and they're like, yeah, like the post COVID, like the need for these like physical stores to exist has like basically diminished, because they've taken, let's say, the 80% of what they were doing and totally pushed it online. And then on top of that, you have Apple it used to be, for example, like when I would upgrade an iPhone, I had to go take it in, swap out the SIM in the store,
Right.
and then they would register in the computer. Now, like Apple just totally, like I buy my phone from Apple, and like in the background, it just clicks and like, okay, my number just gets ported over eSIM and I'm done. So
Yep.
I think I'm more worried about this business if it's a bunch of AT&T stores and Verizon and flagship stores, because that's all happening faster. Like I can pay digitally and all that kind of stuff. For this end of the market, I think this will be the last to die. So there's that going on for it. But also like the story here, like I'm not so like, as I dig into it, I'm like, wait, why are they selling this business, right? Like in theory, they have negligible, cost basis in terms of starting it up. The thing's doing 35,000 a month. Why not, instead of selling the whole thing? And I guess maybe the selling for the whole thing is he's getting a ton of money for it if he gets this asking price, or she selling the business. But it's also like, this is one where it's like, okay, well, why don't you just hire somebody to run it for you and still just pocket 20,000 a month? So there's that aspect of it that just doesn't make sense. And I would want to figure out what's going on in this market that maybe I just don't know, but that an insider totally knows.
Yeah. Well, there's another interesting aspect based on what you've got on the screen here, the PDF that breaks down the gross revenue for each of the stores. You mentioned it earlier. A couple of these stores kill it. A couple of these stores are barely breaking even.
Yeah.
And barely breaking even, probably in a marginal neighborhood, with staff that's unreliable, like there's a lifestyle tax on barely breaking even. So if I were looking at this business, I would be looking pro forma. What if I close these stores?
Yeah.
Does that make the business better? Maybe it does. It might make it a little smaller, but probably not very much smaller on the profit line.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it looks like, to your point, I hadn't noticed before this. That's a great observation. Store number 2 and store number 6. So they list each store's rental rate, and then they list each store's gross. And it's actually interesting. Their highest rent stores are actually the ones that are the least profitable and the money losers. Look at this. So here they have this one at 7613 Roosevelt Road, 1,400 square feet, paying $5,500 a month for their retail spot to the strip mall owner. It's grossing $4,200 a month. They are losing money on 2 of these stores.
So I think these grosses actually mean to be labeled net, because if you add them up, it gets to about $34,000, which is the net income per month. So I think, but to your point, Michael, one of these stores makes $10,000 a month, if we're interpreting this correctly, and one of these stores makes $4,000 a month, right? Less than half as much. So how much pain in the ass overhead, general management factor is there here in store number 6, which makes $4,000 a month, versus store number 5, which makes $10,000 a month?
Yeah.
So I would be thinking about, hey, dude, I don't want to buy your 3 crappiest stores. I just want to buy the 3 good ones. Because I went to Cricket.com while you were talking, Michael. There's a link in the footer that says become an authorized retailer. Like, you don't go to the McDonald's website and it says become a franchisee. Like, you got to be invited, right? But Cricket, it looks like you fill out an online form and boom, you're an authorized retailer. So I would wonder, how much of this is the importance of this business is site selection, right? Where I would say, I could spend $1.2 million to buy this guy's kind of half good, half crap site selection. Or do I take my $1.2 million and, go to Cricket and say, I'm opening 5 stores, and I figure out how to do my homework right and open 5 good ones?
Super interesting. Well, and I think it also, what you just said highlights kind of the mind F, like the discontinuity, whatever the word is. It's Friday, sorry. But about choosing what franchise to be in. You actually want to choose the franchises that aren't advertised and aren't going through franchise brokers. So like every city has these like franchise conventions. We just had one in San Antonio where it's like, oh, big franchise convention. And it's just the people trying to sell the meh or not very good franchises, which are not the ones you want to be in. The franchises you actually want to be in are the good ones, and they don't have to go pay those people brokerage fees. And they have people lined up across the street trying to buy in. And that's the Orange Theories, right? The McDonald's, Crumble Cookies is another one. Like Crumble Cookies isn't advertising through some stupid franchise convention because every single one of their locations is printing money right now and people are lined up to do it. And so I think you have a situation where, like if you see a franchise that's like, hey, sign up right now to be a franchisee, either it's just getting started or it's one to run the hell away from, like a Subway, for example, that it's just going to try to trap you and capture all the economics. And Cricket, I think, is definitely in that bucket. And I'm with you, Bill. I think you asked a great question. Like, is this a long-term future thing? Would I rather own one of these in terms of the future shift in technology, or would I rather own a Dairy Queen or a try to get an Orange Theory? Like those 2 latter ones definitely seem like they have much more of a future than this does.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of franchises. I mean, I don't think, Michael, for you, but I certainly don't mean to poop on franchises. Franchises can be a really interesting business model, especially for people who are a little bit more risk averse and they want a template. Franchises can freaking print money. Like if you are a great operational executor and you can build up a portfolio of lucrative franchises, I have seen. The joke is, right, that McDonald's has made more millionaires than anyone else, like they in their franchisees. They got the main character from The Blind Side, right? I forget his name, but like a multi-million, like a lot of money on McDonald's franchises. So they can be good businesses, but you got to pick well, and then you got to be a good operator.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's funny that people really bemoan the death of Main Street America and entrepreneurship, like in America. But like all we did was just take a bunch of crappy, like Main Street style stuff that wasn't very good, cafes, little hardware stores, little business to business services businesses, and then turn those into standardized national chains through franchises. And those franchisees are like great operators, right? And like my favorite example, have I talked to you about the little UPS store in my town, like right down the street?
I don't think so, specifically. No,
Oh yeah. So I went in there yesterday, and like everything is immaculate. Like the staff is like clean pressed button downs, like somebody ironed their shirts that morning, like just immaculate, like everything's super well organized. The signage is all like, when was the last time you went into a store and like the signs were perfectly leveled because the owners did that? Like just amazing. And I've talked to the owners, and they're just like this little old couple who was retired and like totally bored with life. So they run a UPS store, and it's like low stress. They get to say hi to everybody in my town. Like it's just perfect. Right. And like they're beautiful, beautiful little operators, beautiful little setup, and it's like a huge win of like entrepreneurship on rails. And like I love it. Like I go in there and I'm like, you guys are doing so great, and they're like, who the hell are you? It's so being a business nerd, you go in and like give people high fives for doing a good job, and they're like, what? So that's me.
Well, it's important to note too, like everybody thinks franchise and think restaurant, but restaurants or franchises rather can be Cricket Wireless, like I think Sherwin-Williams, UPS Store, Roto-Rooter, like even some of these home services are franchises. Painters, there's a lot of painting franchises. I mean, you name it, it's been franchised, right? Laundromats, I'm an investor in a laundromat franchise called Laundrolab. So they'll teach you how to open a laundromat and do it all right and broker your relationship with Electrolux for the washers, dryers, all that. So like if you want to start a business, franchise is not terrible, but just you can get ripped off, man, by the franchise brokers, unscrupulous franchisors. You got to pick the right one. But by and large, franchising can be okay if you pick your spot.
Totally. And for the right person. That's totally it. Me personally, I hate rules. There's no way I could be a franchisee unless there was some insulation where I didn't have to follow a bunch of rules that somebody was telling me how to do stuff I thought was stupid. So cool. Well, this is a good one. Good one.
Yeah,
I love playing buy, bid, sell roulette.
Love it. All right. Live Oak Bank, my favorite SBA lenders in the whole country. Thank you to Live Oak. Thank you to Heather as well for being a longtime friend and sponsor of the pod. That wraps it up for this week on Acquisitions Anonymous. We'll see you guys next time.